right. Ready to dive deep into something everybody knows.
Let's go for it.
The ups and downs of having a crush.
Ah,
All those
yeah.
butterflies. And using a list called Top 10 Hardest Things About Having a Crush
Hmm.
from the top10s.com. So think of it as like a crash course
Yeah.
in the psychology of attraction based on real people and their stories.
Oh, that's fun.
What do you think about this? I'd love for everyone listening to kind of, think about their own crushes and how they fit into these common themes.
I think what's interesting about this list is that it doesn't just focus on the butterflies and rainbows,
Right.
the fun, exciting parts of a crush. It really dives into all the complexities, the anxieties,
Right.
even like the painful, difficult parts. And it's kind of a reminder that these seemingly lighthearted emotions
Yeah.
that have a real impact on us.
Yeah, and reading through the stories, I was struck by how many people mentioned getting rejected,
Oh, yeah.
like in really public ways.
Huh.
There's one story that starts with, Kay, story time. I really, really like someone. We were perfect. We would work out so.
Yeah.
Darned good. Over the course of 2 weeks, suspense built up. My grade has this thing where we create code names for our crushes. His was backpack.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the secrecy, the anticipation, it's like, it's almost Shakespearean.
It is, yeah. It reminds us that crushes aren't just these personal feelings that we have, but they play out in this social context. And this code name thing, for instance, it's like it creates this shared experience, this little in-group that kind of heightens all the excitement.
Right.
But it also sets the stage for potential humiliation if things go wrong.
Right.
Which, unfortunately, they often do.
And he goes on to say, but then everyone found out. His best friend ruined it. That one recess shivers. All my trusted friends of both genders were going to help me confess, but when they told him, he rejected me so badly he ruined it. The whole grade knew, even the teachers. Now he hates me, and I don't know how to talk to him, and worst of all, I like him again. Talk about a public execution of the heart. But this isn't just high school drama.
Right.
There's some serious psychology at play here.
Absolutely. This story really taps into our primal fear of social rejection. And research has shown that the same areas of the brain that process physical pain also light up when we experience social rejection. So this user's pain is very real.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're all kind of wired to feel very deeply.
It makes you think about how our social wiring might have evolved to avoid rejection, which would have been crucial for survival in our early hunter-gatherer days.
Yeah.
So even though, a public rejection in school
Right.
doesn't have the same life or death consequences,
Right.
our brains still react in a similar way.
Exactly. And that intense emotional response, it can linger long after the event itself.
Yeah.
It can make us hesitant to kind of, put ourselves out there again.
Yeah.
Even when we know, logically, that, one rejection doesn't define our worth.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to another crushing blow.
Okay.
The dreaded friend zone.
Ooh, yeah,
This one's a classic for a reason. Everyone has a story about it.
totally.
One user shared their experience of finally mustering the courage to confess their feelings, only to have their crush agree to be their boyfriend and then break up with them the next day.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a whirlwind of emotions.
Yeah. The friend zone is often depicted as this kind of lighthearted situation in, movies and TV shows.
Right.
But in reality, it can be incredibly painful.
Totally.
There's a sense of unrequited love, of hopes being dashed.
Yeah.
That can really leave a lasting impact.
I agree, but what stood out to me was the user's response to this experience.
Yeah.
They wrote, to everyone else who is going through either rejection, breakup, or being friend-zoned, don't be like me and think that nobody else will like you. Move on and accept it. There will be another person waiting to fall in love with you. It's like they took this painful experience and transformed it into a message of resilience and hope.
That's a really mature response.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the power of self-awareness and emotional intelligence.
Right.
Instead of getting stuck in the pain of that rejection, they're choosing to learn from it
Right.
and kind of move forward with a positive outlook.
Right.
But the friend zone, I think, is often more complicated than just one person wanting more than the other.
Right.
It can point to these deeper issues of, compatibility, communication, and even attachment styles.
Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, sure.
I'm intrigued by that idea of attachment styles playing a role here.
So attachment theory suggests that, we develop certain patterns of relating to others
Uh-huh.
based on our early childhood experiences. So
Mm.
someone with an anxious attachment style, for example, might be more prone to feeling insecure in relationships,
Right.
needing constant reassurance. Whereas someone with a more avoidant attachment style might be um, uncomfortable with, intimacy
Hmm.
and emotional closeness.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if someone with an anxious attachment style has a crush on someone with an avoidance style, it's almost a recipe for the friend zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You've got one person, they're craving this deep connection,
Uh-huh.
constantly seeking affirmation, while the other person's pulling away, wanting more space and independence. And this mismatch in needs and expectations can lead to a lot of frustration and heartbreak.
So basically, sometimes it's not just about whether someone likes you back.
Right.
It's about, are your emotional needs compatible in the first place?
Exactly. And it's something to keep in mind when navigating any kind of relationship,
Right.
not just crushes.
Right.
Understanding your own attachment style and how it kind of influences your interactions can be incredibly valuable.
Okay, before we go too deep into attachment theory, let's
Okay.
tackle another big one on the list,
Okay.
competition. I mean, this is the stuff of uh, epic poems and reality TV. The list even mentions the Iliad and Helen of Troy as an extreme example.
Oh, yeah. Competition for a crush can really tap into those primal instincts.
Right.
We've got jealousy, possessiveness,
Uh-huh.
even aggression kind of bubbling up to the surface.
It's fascinating.
It's fascinating, yeah, how these seemingly trivial matters of the heart can evoke such strong emotions.
Yeah, it's like we're hardwired to fight for love,
Mhm.
even if it's just a crush.
Yeah.
One user's story really brought this to life,
Mm.
talking about constantly feeling like they were in competition with their friend
Right.
for their crush's attention. Every interaction felt like a game of chess,
Wow.
trying to outmaneuver each other for the slightest advantage.
It makes you wonder if we're, kind of unconsciously enacting those ancient myths in our own lives.
Right.
Think about the stories we're exposed to from a young age, fairy tales with their damsels in distress,
Right.
love triangles,
Right.
battles for the affections of the chosen one. It's all about competition and conquest.
It's true. We're conditioned to see love as something to be won,
Yeah.
a prize to be claimed. And I think that competitive mindset can be especially pronounced in adolescence
Uh-huh.
when our sense of identity is still forming
Right.
and we're trying to figure out where we fit in the social hierarchy.
Right. It's a time of intense social comparison,
Uh-huh.
and having a crush can become a way of, validating ourselves, proving our worth, even gaining social status.
Uh-huh.
But it can also lead to, some pretty unhealthy behaviors.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of unhealthy behaviors, let's talk about the next entry on the list.
Okay.
Accepting that they don't like you.
Mm.
This one hit me hard because it's not just about unrequited love. It's about facing rejection when the other person actively dislikes you.
Right.
One user shared their experience of having a crush on someone who constantly called them obsessed
Oh, wow.
and seemed to revel in their misery.
That's awful.
The story is heartbreaking, and it raises some important questions about boundaries and respect.
Right. It's crucial to recognize that not all crushes are created equal.
Yeah.
Some of these harmless infatuations
Right.
that kind of fade with time,
Uh,
but others can, cross the line into these unhealthy attachments bordering on obsession.
what's particularly difficult in this situation is that the user's friend kept bringing them up to their crush, even though they knew the crush disliked them.
Oh,
It's like unintentional sabotage.
yeah. It really highlights the power of those social dynamics
Mhm.
and how even with the best intentions, friends can sometimes exacerbate the situation.
Right.
It also underscores the importance of communicating your needs clearly
Yeah.
and setting boundaries, both with your friends and with the person you have a crush on.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the best way to deal with a crush is to acknowledge the situation and step back, especially if it's causing you pain. But let's face it, unrequited feelings can be tough to shake off,
Right.
especially when they're coupled with feelings of jealousy.
Oh, yes, jealousy. That green-eyed monster can rear its ugly head in so many ways when it comes to crushes. One user summed it up perfectly. Whenever someone touches my crush, I feel jealousy.
It's like that visceral reaction
Yeah.
that's hardwired into our systems.
Right.
I mean, I remember feeling jealous even when my crush was just talking to someone else.
Mm.
It's irrational, but it's so powerful.
It is, and that intensity really stems from the uncertainty inherent in crushes.
Right.
You know, we've invested emotional energy in this person,
Uh-huh.
but we don't know if they feel the same way. So any perceived threat to that potential connection
Yeah.
can just trigger this wave of jealousy.
It's like a way of protecting something we value,
Yeah.
even if that value is based on, like, imagined possibilities.
Right.
Rather than, like, a concrete relationship.
It's almost like we're preemptively grieving the loss of something we never even had. We're mourning the potential of the relationship, the fantasy we've built up in our minds.
Yeah.
And that imagined loss, it can feel very real,
Yeah.
especially when we're bombarded with these images of our crush interacting with other people.
This whole discussion about jealousy makes me think about the role of social media in amplifying these feelings.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we're constantly exposed to curated versions of our crush's lives.
Right.
Their interactions with others, their seemingly perfect moments.
Right.
It's a breeding ground for insecurity and comparison.
Absolutely. Social media can really create this distorted reality
Yeah.
that makes it even harder to navigate the already complex emotions of having a crush.
Right.
We're comparing ourselves to these idealized versions of others,
Yeah.
which can really fuel those feelings of inadequacy and jealousy.
All right, so we talked about rejection, the friend zone, competition, and jealousy.
Uh-huh.
It's like we've covered the whole spectrum of crush-related anxieties.
Right.
But there's one more hurdle we need to address.
Okay.
And this one can be especially daunting for young people.
Yeah.
The fear of actually talking to your crush.
Yeah. This is where the internal battle really heats up.
Right.
You know, we've got the desire for connection, battling against the fear of rejection, all kind of playing out in our minds.
And one user, an 18-year-old, shared their struggle with approaching potential partners because of age differences and societal norms.
Mm.
They wrote, "I like a couple people, but the age difference is too big and would get me in trouble with both their parents and mine. Plus, I'm bisexual, and if I date girls, I have to worry about what my parents would think." It's like there's this added layer of complexity
Right.
when you're navigating crushes within a social context that might not be as accepting or understanding.
It's a powerful reminder that crushes aren't just about personal feelings. They're also influenced by these societal norms, family dynamics, and cultural expectations.
Yeah.
And for this user, there's a lot at stake. And that fear of judgment or disapproval, it can be paralyzing.
It makes you realize what might seem like a simple crush can actually be a really courageous act of self-expression.
Yeah.
Especially when you're facing external pressures or navigating complex social situations.
Yeah.
It's about more than just butterflies. It's about asserting your identity in challenging norms.
Absolutely. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage and vulnerability.
Okay, so we've talked about the fear of talking to your crush, but what happens when you're on the receiving end of unwanted attention? We
Yeah.
can't forget about the darker side of crushes, the ones that cross boundaries,
Right.
make you feel uncomfortable or unsafe.
Right. And it's essential to distinguish between harmless infatuation and behavior that is, intrusive, disrespectful, or even threatening.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, not all crushes are reciprocated,
right.
and some people really struggle to accept that.
Exactly. This brings us to another entry on the list that really stood out.
Mm.
Seeing your crush having a thing with a bully.
Oof.
Talk about adding insult to injury.
This scenario combines the pain of unrequited love with this added injustice of seeing your crush involved with someone who has treated you poorly.
Yeah.
And it's a situation that can evoke feelings of, betrayal, confusion, anger,
Yeah.
especially if you're already feeling vulnerable or marginalized.
One user described it as honestly annoying
Yeah.
to watch their bully act like an angel from heaven
Mm.
around their crush while treating them with disdain.
Mm.
It highlights that dissonance between how people present themselves in different social contexts
Right.
and the frustration of feeling powerless to change the situation.
It also touches on those complex dynamics of power and popularity,
Right.
especially in, school settings where bullies often wield this social influence,
Yeah.
and those who are targeted can feel ostracized or silenced.
It's like you're witnessing a betrayal of your own reality. You know this person is capable of cruelty, but your crush seems oblivious to it.
Right.
It can be incredibly disillusioning, especially at a young age when you're still trying to figure out who to trust,
Right.
how to navigate social hierarchies.
And it can make you question your own judgment, wondering why your crush is drawn to someone who seems so different from how they present themselves to you.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that that people are complex,
Uh-huh.
and we often only see a fraction of who they are, especially in those early stages of a relationship.
It's like a crash course in the complexities of human nature.
Exactly, and it really highlights the importance of looking beyond those surface-level impressions
Right.
and paying attention to how people treat others,
Yeah.
not just how they treat us.
Okay, so we've explored the highs and lows, the joys and anxieties of having a crush.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when those feelings lead to a real relationship? Does the intensity of that initial attraction fade over time, or does it linger even after the relationship ends?
That's a great question,
Yeah.
and it leads us to the next entry on the list, breaking up.
Yeah.
And this isn't just about the pain of, ending a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
It's about that, that lingering heartache
Yeah.
of a crush that kind of blossomed into something more, only to wither and die.
One user shared their experience of being in a relationship for 2 years, only to find that the heartbreak still lingered 2 years after the breakup.
Wow.
It's a reminder that even short-lived relationships
Yeah.
can have a lasting impact,
Right.
especially when they stem from those intense feelings of infatuation or love.
It's like the initial intensity of the crush kind of amplifies the emotional stakes of the relationship.
Yeah.
And when it ends, that sense of loss can be profound.
Right.
Even if the relationship itself wasn't particularly long or serious.
Yeah, it's almost like the heartbreak is proportionate to the initial excitement and
Yeah,
anticipation.
exactly.
And that can make it difficult to move on
Right.
and
Yeah.
process those feelings,
Yeah.
especially if you're still carrying a torch for the person you lost.
It's essential to, allow yourself time to grieve the loss of the relationship,
Uh-huh.
even if it was relatively short-lived.
Right.
Crushes can create these powerful emotional bonds,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes time to kind of untangle those connections and rediscover your own identity.
It's like a process of mourning the potential of the relationship,
Yeah.
the dreams and hopes you had for the future.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that, heartbreak is a universal experience.
Right.
And even though it feels deeply personal, it's something that connects us to others who have gone through similar pain.
Yeah.
It's part of the human condition. And heartbreak can be a powerful catalyst for growth.
Right.
It can force us to kind of, confront our vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
reevaluate our priorities, and ultimately emerge stronger and wiser
Right.
on the other side.
It's like a crucible that forges resilience. And speaking of resilience, let's lighten things up a bit
Okay.
with one of the more humorous entries on the list.
Right.
Getting their attention without making a complete fool of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
This one is full of those cringeworthy moments that we can all relate to.
Totally.
Those awkward attempts to impress a crush.
Yeah.
That sometimes backfire in spectacular fashion.
Oh, yes. These stories are a goldmine
Right?
of relatable awkwardness.
Yes.
It's that blend of nervous energy and, misguided bravado
Right.
that makes them so endearing.
One user shared this gem.
Okay.
Once we were going to the library and I put a pencil on my ear, I was holding a ton of stuff. Then I said I was doing this to be wise. You can practically feel the secondhand embarrassment
Oh, yeah.
radiating from that story.
Totally.
But there's also something charming
Uh,
about that earnestness.
that willingness to put yourself out there,
Right.
even if it means risking a faceplant.
It's like we're all kind of trying to navigate this invisible script of attraction,
Uh-huh.
but sometimes we trip over our own feet
Yes.
in the process.
Yeah.
And those moments, as cringeworthy as they might be, they're also part of what makes crushes so memorable.
And I think that's what makes these stories so relatable.
Yeah.
They remind us we're all human, and we all stumble and fumble our way through those early stages of attraction.
Totally.
It's not always smooth or sophisticated,
Right.
but it's real.
It is.
Yeah.
And those, those moments of vulnerability, even the ones that make us kind of want to disappear into a hole,
Yeah.
they can actually be endearing.
Right.
They show that we care enough
Yeah.
to risk looking foolish,
Yeah.
which can be incredibly attractive in its own right.
It makes me think about how our culture often celebrates this very polished, idealized version of love.
Right. We see it in movies, in music, in
Yeah.
advertising. But real life is messy.
Right.
And attraction's often messy, too.
It is.
And I think there's something to be said for embracing that messiness, for
Uh-huh.
letting go of the need to be perfect,
Yeah.
and just being ourselves,
Right.
even if it means occasionally tripping over a metaphorical pencil.
I agree. There's a certain charm to authenticity,
Yeah.
to letting your guard down,
Right.
showing your true colors, even if those colors are, a bit awkward or clumsy at times.
Right.
And that vulnerability can actually create a stronger connection
Right.
than trying to um, present this flawless facade.
So maybe the key to getting your crush's attention isn't about being uh, cool or smooth.
Right.
Maybe it's about being genuine, even if that means occasionally putting a pencil on your ear
Yeah.
and calling yourself wise.
And speaking of misinterpretations,
Yeah?
let's not forget about the classic conundrum of mixed signals. This is the one that can drive you absolutely crazy,
Right.
leaving you second-guessing every interaction,
Uh-huh.
analyzing every, text message for hidden meaning.
Mixed signals.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate relationship puzzle,
Right.
where the pieces keep changing shape,
Mm.
and you're never quite sure if you're putting them together correctly.
Right.
One user described their experience as their friend calling them gay,
Right.
while simultaneously saying, "You're the closest I would ever get to a girl."
Oh, wow.
Talk about a head scratcher. I mean, how do you even begin to decipher that?
Right. It's like trying to read tea leaves made out of emojis
Yeah.
and vague pronouncements.
Right.
But I think mixed signals often stem from a few different factors.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a lack of self-awareness on the part of the person sending the signals. They might not even realize they're being inconsistent or unclear. Other times it's about fear of rejection or commitment. They might be sending those mixed signals because they're not sure what they want themselves.
So it's not always intentional.
Right.
It's not necessarily a game they're playing.
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's just a reflection of their own internal confusion. They might be, attracted to you,
Yeah.
but also scared of taking things to the next level, or they might be enjoying the attention and validation without being ready for a real relationship.
Oh.
It's like they're testing the waters
Right.
without being willing to dive in.
And that can be incredibly frustrating.
Right.
For the person on the receiving end of those mixed signals, it's like you're stuck in this emotional limbo, never quite sure if you should move forward or give up.
Exactly. And that ambiguity can keep us hooked, hoping for a sign, a gesture, anything that clarifies their feelings.
Yeah.
But sometimes the kindest thing we can do for ourselves.
Is to kind of step back
Yeah.
and recognize that if someone is consistently sending those mixed signals, it might be a sign
Yeah.
to redirect our energy elsewhere.
That's easier said than done, though,
Right.
especially when you're caught up in the emotional whirlwind of a crush.
It is, but it's important to remember that, clear communication is the foundation of any healthy relationship.
Right.
And if someone can't communicate their feelings and intentions honestly and consistently,
Yeah.
it's a red flag.
Right.
It's a sign that they might not be ready for the kind of connection we're seeking.
So what you're saying is sometimes the best way to deal with mixed signals is to stop trying to decipher them
Right.
and start prioritizing our own emotional well-being.
Exactly. It's about, recognizing that we deserve clarity and respect
Yeah.
in our relationships.
Right.
And if someone can't provide that, it's okay to walk away
Yeah.
and seek connections with people who can. That's a really empowering perspective.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we have agency in these situations, even when it feels like we're at the mercy of someone else's confusing behavior.
Absolutely. We always have a choice.
Right.
And sometimes the most courageous choice is to walk away
Yeah.
from something that's draining our energy and causing us pain,
Right.
even if it means letting go of a fantasy.
Okay, so we've delved into the official top 10.
Right.
But there were some fascinating newcomers
Yeah.
and contenders on this list that I think are worth exploring.
Okay.
One that caught my eye. Seeing them look more attractive on certain days due to makeup, clothing, and hairstyles. It's like, is beauty really in the eye of the beholder? Or is it all about the right filter?
That's a fascinating point. It makes you wonder how much of attraction is based on, objective beauty standards,
Yeah.
and how much is influenced by, our own subjective perceptions and desires.
Mm.
It also raises these questions about the role of presentation
Right.
and how we use, clothing, makeup, hairstyles
Yeah.
to project certain images of ourselves to the world.
Right. It's like, are we attracted to the person or are we attracted to the persona they're presenting?
It's probably a combination of both. There are certain features that are kind of universally considered attractive,
Right.
like symmetry
Uh-huh.
and clear skin.
Right.
But then there are these individual preferences that are shaped by our personal experiences, our cultural influences,
Yeah.
and even our unconscious biases.
So it's not just about physical features.
Right.
It's about how those features interact with our own personal narratives and associations.
Exactly. And that's why, someone might find their crush incredibly attractive one day
Right.
and then barely notice them the next.
Right.
It all depends on, the context, the
Right.
lighting,
Yeah.
the outfit, even our own mood.
Yeah. It's like beauty is a constantly shifting target,
Right.
influenced by a multitude of factors, both internal and external. It's not a fixed state. It's a dynamic interaction.
I think that's a really helpful way to frame it.
Yeah.
It reminds us that attraction is fluid
Yeah.
and multi-layered. And it also encourages us to kind of look beyond those initial surface level impressions
Right.
and consider the deeper qualities that truly make someone captivating.
Yeah, it's like maybe instead of focusing on whether our crush is having a good hair day, you should be asking ourselves,
Right.
what qualities do we find truly compelling?
Yeah.
And seeking out people who embody those traits.
That's a great point, and it brings us back to the importance of self-awareness
Right.
and understanding what we value in a partner.
Yeah.
It's about looking beyond the superficial and recognizing those qualities that create a genuine connection.
Right. Let's move on to another newcomer that I found particularly relatable.
Okay.
Moving schools.
Yeah.
There's something bittersweet about a crush ending, not because of rejection or fading feelings, but simply because life takes you in different directions.
It's like a forced ending to a story
Right.
that was still unfolding.
Right.
And it can kind of evoke this sense of nostalgia for what might have been,
Yeah.
even if the relationship was never fully realized.
Yeah. Makes me think about all the what ifs
Yeah.
and the could have beens.
Right.
But there's also a sense of acceptance,
Yeah.
a recognition that some connections
Right.
are meant to be temporary.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's part of the natural ebb and flow of life.
It is, and it reminds us that sometimes letting go is a necessary part of growth.
Right.
It's about embracing the impermanence of life
Uh-huh.
and recognizing that some chapters are meant to be short and sweet,
Right.
even if they leave a lingering imprint
Yeah.
on our hearts. It's like that saying, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to crushes too. Sometimes the beauty is in the fleeting nature of the experience,
Yeah.
in the intensity of those feelings,
Right.
even if they don't lead to a lasting romance.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that every experience,
Right.
even a seemingly insignificant crush, can kind of contribute to our personal growth
Yeah.
and shape who we become.
It's like a thread in the tapestry of
Okay.
our lives,
Yeah.
adding texture and color
Yeah.
to the overall design.
Exactly. And speaking of hidden threads, let's talk about the last newcomer we want to discuss.
Okay.
Keeping it a secret.
Hmm.
This one really gets into the internal struggle of, wanting to confide in your friends, but also fearing, vulnerability
Right.
or betrayal.
Oh, the secret crush. It's like a delicious little secret
Right.
that we hold close to our hearts,
Yeah.
savoring the intensity of those feelings in private.
Yeah.
But it can also be isolating,
Right.
especially if we're afraid to share those feelings with anyone.
Yeah.
And let's be honest,
Uh-huh.
who hasn't been burned by a secret crush gone wrong?
Oh, really?
I mean, one user shared their experience of their best friend accidentally revealing their crush to the person they liked.
Oh, no.
Talk about awkward.
It's like that moment in a rom-com where the secret love letter gets intercepted by the wrong person and chaos ensues.
Right.
But I think those situations, as mortifying as they might be, can also teach us, valuable lessons about trust and communication.
Yeah, it makes you realize that sometimes, even with the best intentions, things can go sideways.
And it highlights the importance of choosing our confidants carefully.
Yeah.
Recognizing that not everyone is worthy of our deepest secrets.
Right. And it also speaks to the power dynamics at play.
Right.
In friendships, especially in adolescence.
Right.
There's often this sense of competition.
Yeah.
Of wanting to be the one in the know.
Right.
That can really lead to, gossip.
Yeah.
And betrayals.
Right.
It's like navigating a minefield.
Yeah.
Of social anxieties.
And sometimes it's just easier to keep those feelings to ourselves.
Yeah.
To avoid the potential drama or judgment.
Right.
But that can also create a sense of loneliness and isolation, especially if we're longing for connection.
Right.
And validation.
Like a tricky balance.
Yeah.
We want to protect our hearts, but we also crave that that connection and understanding.
So how do we navigate that?
Yeah.
How do we decide who to trust with our secret crushes?
I think it comes down to intuition and paying attention to how people have treated us in the past. Have they been trustworthy with our secrets before?
Right.
Do they listen without judgment?
Right.
Do they respect our boundaries?
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then they might be a safe person to confide in. But if we're not sure, it's always okay to kind of err on the side of caution.
Right.
And keep those feelings to ourselves until we're ready to share them.
So basically, trust your gut.
Yeah.
Choose your confidants wisely.
Exactly. And remember, even if you decide to keep your crush a secret,
right,
it's important to find, healthy ways to process those feelings.
Right.
Whether it's through, journaling, creative expression, or simply allowing yourself to daydream. Yeah. It's essential to kind of acknowledge those emotions and give them space to breathe.
What strikes me about this list is how it normalizes the full spectrum of experiences associated with crushes. We often hear about the romantic, idealized version of attraction.
Right.
But this list reminds us it's not always butterflies and roses.
Right.
There's awkwardness, jealousy, heartbreak, even a touch of absurdity.
That's what makes it so relatable.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's important to have those conversations to kind of acknowledge the messiness and the complexity of attraction.
Yeah.
And to realize that we're not alone in those experiences.
Absolutely. It's like a collective sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Knowing that everyone's been through those awkward encounters.
Right.
Those moments of unrequited love. Those pangs of jealousy.
Yeah.
It's part of being human.
It is, and it's through those experiences that we learn and grow. Developing our emotional intelligence and ultimately shaping our understanding of love and relationships.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
From the exhilarating highs to the gut-wrenching lows of crushes.
We have.
We've explored the science of attraction, the psychology of rejection, the complexities of communication, and the importance of self-awareness.
Right.
But what's the takeaway?
Yeah.
What have we learned from all of this?
I think the overarching theme here is that crushes, while often dismissed as trivial or fleeting, can actually be these incredibly powerful teachers. They offer us these valuable insights into ourselves, our desires, and our patterns of relating to others.
It's like they're a crash course in relationships, even if they don't always lead to a happily ever after.
Exactly. And they can be catalysts for personal growth, forcing us to kind of confront our vulnerabilities, challenge our assumptions about love, and develop our emotional resilience.
It's like a crucible that forges empathy, understanding, self-awareness.
Yeah.
And even if a crush doesn't blossom into a lasting romance,
right,
it can still leave a a lasting impact.
It can. It can inspire creativity,
Huh.
fuel our passions,
Yeah.
and teach us valuable lessons about, communication,
Right.
boundaries,
Yeah.
the importance of honoring our own emotional needs.
So crushes aren't just about butterflies
Right.
and stolen glances.
Yeah.
They're about self-discovery, resilience, and the intricate tapestry
Yeah.
of human connections. Like we're all on this journey of figuring out love and relationships.
Yeah.
And crushes are these little pit stops along the way,
I
sometimes exhilarating.
sometimes heartbreaking, but always offering a chance to kind of learn and grow.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of growth, one thing that I think often gets overlooked
Yeah.
is the creative potential of crushes.
Mm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
throughout history, artists, writers, musicians, you name it, they've kind of channeled the energy of unrequited love,
Right.
the longing, the yearning,
Right.
into some of the most powerful and moving works of art.
Oh, absolutely. Think about all those iconic love songs, poems, paintings
Yeah.
born out of heartbreak or the intensity of a crush. It's like those raw emotions can fuel creativity
Totally.
in a way that nothing else can.
It's like that saying, the heart's a bloom, the more it's trampled on, the more it grows.
Wow.
Crushes can be those trampling experiences,
Right.
pushing us to express ourselves in ways we never thought possible.
And even if we're not creating masterpieces, those feelings can inspire us to, to try new things,
Right.
explore different aspects of ourselves.
And kind of expand our horizons. It's like that burst of energy and motivation
Yeah.
that comes from wanting to impress someone or share something special with them.
Exactly. And that energy can kind of spill over into other areas of our lives.
Right.
Fueling our passions, our pursuits,
Uh,
even our personal growth.
it's like a hidden wellspring
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
inspiration.
So as we wrap up this deep dive
Yeah.
into the wonderful, messy world of crushes,
Right.
I want to leave our listener with something to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked about the science, the psychology, the societal influences.
Right.
But what about the personal impact?
Yeah.
What have your crushes taught you about yourself,
Right.
about love,
Mm.
about what you truly value in a partner?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it's one that each of us needs to answer for ourselves.
Right.
But I would encourage our listener to kind of reflect on those experiences,
Yeah.
both the joyful
Uh-huh.
and the painful ones,
Right.
and consider the lessons they've learned along the way. What patterns do you notice in your own life? How have
Yeah.
your crushes shaped your understanding of relationships?
Yeah.
What qualities do you find truly irresistible
Yeah.
in another person?
It's like those seemingly insignificant moments of, teenage angst
Yeah.
or adult infatuation
Right.
can hold these surprisingly profound insights
Right.
about who we are and, and what we truly desire.
Yeah.
And by kind of revisiting those memories, we can gain a deeper understanding of our own hearts
Right.
and the intricate tapestry of human connection.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And remember, even though crushes can be a wild ride,
Mm-hmm.
they're an essential part of the human experience.
Right.
Embrace the journey.
Yeah.
Learn from the challenges.
Uh-huh.
And never underestimate the power of a little bit of heartbreak to
Right.
shape who you become.
That wraps up our deep dive on the top 10 hardest things about having a crush.
Thanks for joining us
And we'll see you next time.
for another fascinating exploration of the world around us. Until then, keep crushing, keep learning, and keep those hearts open
Yeah.
to the possibilities.